So I put a slide deck together with some pictures. The difference tonight is this isn't really a presentation where I'm going to tell you all about grounding and bonding, because I guarantee I don't know as much as all of you do about this, but I can read the book. And earlier, what would have been in February, we put out the call if anyone had was willing to share pictures of their grounding setups at home. We could share that and kind of compare notes and throw some ideas around, and maybe we'll all come out with some ideas. So if you're ready, just very quickly, resources I'm using in this deck. Number one is the Grounding and Bonding for the Radio Amateur by Ward Silver.
Excellent book.
Seems to be the book these days, right? Every time I've actually never sat down. I have it, and I've read it all, but not from like front to back. I look up different sections at different times, and maybe that's why I'm so confused. But that's been fantastic. I pulled a illustration out of the antenna book, so I put that here too. The NEC, the National Electric Code Handbook, has quite a bit on grounding, and even has a section on antennas. But for the life of me, I couldn't find my copy. I have a PDF copy somewhere. Every 3 years, I have to take a bunch of tests to keep my license going. and so I know I have it here somewhere. But anyway, and then, of course, our most important resources are the club members ourselves, right? And, found a little Dagwood cartoon to represent all of us there. So just cutting right to it, I grabbed this diagram out of this is out of the antenna handbook, edition number 24, which I think is the most recent, or last year anyway. And there's a lot going on here, but I thought it captured most of the principles the author was trying to get across, Ward Silver, in his grounding and bonding. You guys tell me if this it looks unrealistic in any way, but the some of the principles, such as bonding your ground rods together, right? So the AC panel in your house will have a ground rod that the electrician put in. And if you're at my house, where's my mouse? Sorry, let me go up a sec. I'll have my own ground rod outside the wall here for my radio equipment, but the two aren't tied together. And of course, what happens there is there's a potential for a voltage difference between the two, right? Which would open the door for some current flow where you don't want it. And so they have recommending to ground to get those two bonded together. And if they're too far apart, you'd need ground rods spaced in between, right? And then they'd all be bonded together. But here's some of these other things. The common bus that we seem to be most people seem to be doing, whether it's a copper pipe or a strap or something, get all the radio equipment grounded to one single point. But check this out. AC safety ground. Oh, pardon that's my chime doorbell. That represents the green wire in our outlets, right? Which go back to the power panel, which is grounded to that ground rod. But look, he's showing a connection point to our bus bar. I know I'm not doing that. So I don't know. We'll see if anybody else is doing that, or if it's necessary, or is that potentially going to cause problems? I don't know, but it's interesting. Can everyone see this okay, by the way? Is it enough filling up the screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
This is my grounding. I put mine up first because it's not that good. So but it's something. So this is right outside the wall where I'm sitting, right? I put in a ground rod. I can't see my text is too small here, but I noted that it's a 6-foot ground rod. I'm pretty sure it's 6 foot. And later in the book there, they say it needs to be a minimum of 8 feet, which sounds like the NEC. That's how they talk. They don't suggest things, they tell you. And so already I fail there. Oh, hey.
I was told to come photobomb your webcam for Bill Janess. This one's for you, Bill.
Back at you, Jesse.
All right.
Heck yeah.
That's
Enough practical jokes just for you.
there. Well, the practice, you don't know. If you walk in front of the camera, you have to get a ham radio license.
Uh-oh.
That's Frank said so. That's my kid. That's Jesse. I lost where I was. Oh goodness. He's the one applying for work at the Amazon. Despite my warnings, anyway. Anyway, single ground rod. I've got stranded, maybe 10 gauge, really heavy copper coming in through a junction box and into the wall here. I don't know if you can see it. There's a green wire headed out to my end-fed half-wave antenna. That was just an experiment to see if I grounded. It's kind of far away, so I think this wire is actually too long and affecting the antenna poorly, but I forgot to disconnect it, so I'd explain what it is. And then in the house, I do what many people are doing for the bus bar. It's a bit of plumbing, copper plumbing pipe with hose clamps. Oop, and you can kind of see the strap coming here through the wall and under the towel and out to the ground rod. Yeah, that's the Ed setup. Feel free to jump in here and stop me or question me on any of this stuff, you guys, as we kind of clunk through it. But that got me thinking. So I'm looking at my own ground rod and looked up the ground rod installation in the book, right? Instead of reading it. And here's the 8-foot minimum. And I think he even calls out the NEC handbook, was calling for 8 feet minimum in the ground. But you know what I'd never thought of is why couldn't you put it in at an angle where you have a bunch of rocks like my yard, or even bury it like they're showing it here? It says trench at least 2.5 feet deep. I don't know.
It'd be a lot easier than pounding it in the ground in most cases, I'll tell you.
Probably would at my house. Pardon me. I've lived places where the ground is just regular ground and you can just hammer something in, but that's not where I live now. That's for sure.
I had at one time I had a 6-foot copper rod that I had buried just to the left of our deck. And I think I was only able, with the use of water, I think I was only able to get about 4.5 feet. Everything below that, I think if I had hit it any harder, I might have struck oil.
I know. Bill and I live in the same neighborhood. We're on the same rock bed, I'm sure.
Boy, howdy.
Let me relate a little experience there. I tried to hammer in an 8-foot rod, and first of all, I took a hammer and a board to distribute the impact, climbed up a ladder, and every time you hit that, the whole board sways like a bow. And then I got smart and I went to Home Depot and I rented something designed to pound in stakes like this. It wasn't terribly expensive. The little electric thing that, a tube is like a fence post pounder, but it's all electric, and it hammered that thing in so sweetly. I must have used it. I rented it for an hour or two, but I only used it. It took a few minutes to hammer that whole thing down as far as I wanted to go. So my recommendation, rent that thing or get an air hammer with the right bit on it to do that.
Oh, an air hammer would be great too.
Yeah, I used an air hammer thing that or an impact drill, I guess it's called, rented from one of the tool rental places. My brother-in-law was an electrician and he knew about this kind of stuff. And I don't remember why, but I did put it in at an angle, and I think he told me that's the way it was supposed to go. But we had second. I mute a call here.
Like the ring.
We had glacial till, that same kind of hard ground, and it went in like butter. It was stood up on the ladder, and it was an 8-foot rod, and like Barry said, it was in 10 minutes maybe.
It's unbelievable. It goes right through rocks and other things. And just a little sub note, I just bought like yesterday an air hammer, and I'll get a bit for these rods because I want to put in a ground rod. So if anybody wants to pound ground rods, ask me in a week.
Oh, there we go. This whole meeting is just paid off. I have 2 more to put in to make that bonding go all the way around to where my electrical service is and do the whole bonding as it should be. Though here's the question, Bill, if you could only get 4 feet in, could you then chop that 4 feet off sticking out and then put it in? Now you have 8 feet in the dirt and then bond those together. I don't know.
You can. The answer is you can do that, but you need to move them apart by the length of the rod. They cannot go in
Yes.
side by side.
Not
So
side by side.
4-foot
Okay.
rod, 4 feet apart, 8-foot rod, 8 feet apart.
Gotcha. The book shows something like that. And I'm surprised it's not in this picture. It'll show 2 ground rods and it'll say minimum 6 feet apart, which implies that for more would be better. But I like your rule of thumb, Barry. If it's an 8-foot rod, 8 feet apart, that makes sense.
Is that distance because of lightning per se?
I imagine you're dispersing current, so to speak, into the earth. So it's a surface area thing, isn't it? If both rods are in the same 2 liters of dirt, you just have a really good connection to that 1 2 liter of dirt instead of.
And yeah, the answer is it is for lightning. And the reason you're doing that is to direct the lightning into the ground rod rather than through your house wiring to its ground rod.
Makes sense.
No, that's exactly right. If we go back up here's Ed's ground rod at the top. Here's Ed's AC service down here. Nothing in between. Lightning hits the antenna. Let's see if I get this right. The point I'm trying to the line I'm trying to find here is that it's going to work its way through everything in my house to get to this ground rod over here. Some of it will, right? Instead of keeping it outside.
The thing you're looking for is that if lightning hits, say, a tree next to one ground rod, then there's a potential between these 2 ground rods. The one by the tree is going to be at 10 million volts, and the one at the other side of your house will be at 0. So there's going to be current from one to the other. Let's run it through something outside of the house.
Keep it outside, right?
I'd like to make a comment about another ground. You notice on the diagram it says cable TV service and phone service. Now Comcast has a ground rod just outside my window here, and that is connected to the shield of their coax. So I was getting some current flow in that shield. So I put in an isolator. You can buy an isolator that isolates the DC path. Now, current flow in those conductors can cause electrolysis and all kinds of problems. So that's what I've done here.
Interesting. You should. You'd laugh if you saw the ground rod on my AC service. It's like a skinny piece of rebar or something. I think they just jammed something in there and dropped a 12 gauge solid conductor on it and walked away. It was really
I have an observation with regard to electrical codes from my recent installation or replacement of my service panel is, and like you, I have the original 1 ground rod outside the house and the service panel. When they replaced the service panel, they put in a second ground rod, probably 25 feet away, and ran number 6 wire to it. So now I actually have 2 ground rods that are connected to the service panel. And then I also had a sub panel put out in my shed, which has got its own ground rod right below where the cable comes out of the ground up through the frame of the shed. But I didn't, they also they ran a ground rod all the way across my garage from the new service panel to my water main inlet too. So they actually added 2 more grounds in addition to the 1 just for the service panel, not counting the ground for the sub panel, which was a separate deal.
wow.
They did for me too. When they had service panel work, they actually ran this massive wire through the attic and down to the water inlet.
Right. Yeah. So they added grounds in 2 different directions.
When the cable company installed the ground for our house, it consists of number 12 wire with about 2 inches of it stripped off and just shoved into the ground.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, this
And
was, yeah.
I complained and they said they'd fix it, but that was 20 years ago and they still haven't fixed it.
So
Oh,
I'm sure they're
yeah.
going to come out.
we're waiting on that
Yeah, I
service
think-
call.
I think number 6 strand is kind of the minimum.
Well, yeah, my my poor house. Though I shouldn't say it that way. It's my house. I should be taking care of that, and I will. And I'll move on. Oops. Rick, welcome back. I'm sorry I didn't have the waiting room window open. Sorry you had to wait out there.
Yeah, just a quick recap. It seems like then the ideal solution is to build a grounding path outside of the house that incorporates the AC grounding rod, and then jumping all the way around, jump to your antenna ground as well as your radio ground. So it sounds like it's ideal to build a grounding path
That's how
on the outside
on
of
the
your
outside.
house.
Yeah, that's how I read this as well, Bill. And the path I have at least laid out in my brain. I'm already got this one. I'll fix that one, and I'll put in enough to do the dog leg around the house. It really is just like this, and then we'll get those all bonded together with some terrifically expensive bit of copper or something, and it'll be super ground, or at least properly grounded, right? As best we know how.
Not to add any more to the equation, but the logic of this is very consistent to the antenna grounding on my sailboat that my late father had. Essentially, he had an insulated backstay. The cabling went to a tuner and then to the radio, but the grounding then went down. It's through a copper strap, and it made a connection to the engine block, followed by one of the water tanks, followed by an additional 18-inch by 24-inch copper plate with a dummy zinc attached to it, and then it hit the second aluminum water tank. So it created multiple paths for ground to protect from a strike. Because of course, a sailboat mast that's aluminum, it's like that old joke, God couldn't hit a 1-iron, with a bolt of lightning. Well, that's kind of what it is.
Oh, I bet it's got to be an interesting experience to be out in the water in a storm. I don't know if I'd be too excited about it in a steel sailboat, a steel hull sailboat. But
yeah, the important part is that the logic that you were just showing
right
there, it's very consistent with what I'm reading from
excellent.
My dad's old diagrams.
Well, think he went through this same exercise right here. And still on ground rods, the last little bit, Chuck mentioned the exothermic welding as opposed to hard clamps for the wire on the ground rods. And it looks pretty cool. I watched the YouTube video and it's pretty amazing. They prep the ground rod and the wire and put this detonator on top or something.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the video, it's worth watching.
It's amazing. It lights off and a few seconds later it's all one piece of metal. And there's kind of a picture here of from this website anyway, the KF7P, which has an amazing catalog of ground stuff for sale there, but we'll see. That would be neat to do. Okay, I'll keep rolling. More member donated photos. This is Chuck Setup, WA7BRL. Thank you, Chuck. First of all, note how much cleaner this is than mine. But Chuck did something really interesting here to keep the connection clean. He used aluminum foil, so the braid coming, I assume, from the house, Chuck, on the right,
Right.
and then to the ground, and then off to the tower on the left, and then you put a piece of PVC over the whole shebang when you're done to keep moisture out of it even further. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, and also to have something that's standing up tall enough that you don't trip over it, you can see it there.
Stub a toe, yeah, or worse. And you're using the copper pipe as well for the bus bar. That's awesome.
That's just one of three. My
Oh,
main one is behind the HF system. That's just my little VHF packet system there.
Wow, that's great. Well, I feel validated for doing it that way. And I'm sure I didn't think of it. I'm sure I saw it on a YouTube video or something, but that's awesome. Let's see. Oh, another diagram I extracted from the book. Just highlighting the bus bar concept. Apparently the bus bar itself, as we're using it, or a common point, these could all be straps, I suppose, and terminated together and off to the ground, are acceptable. The bonding, minimize length. The book is really neat. Its approach is talks about lightning protection ground and RF grounding, and his words were something like, forget about trying to make an RF ground, just fix your bonding and shorten cables and do all these other steps. And right or wrong, it was very practical. I liked it.
And Ed, the gist I got from him too is that he mentioned trying to use solid wire, solid straps, or solid copper over braided. That was the impression I got.
I got that too. Is my understanding was he didn't like the braid outside because moisture would get in there. Though I've had braid outside, so I don't know.
Certainly better than nothing.
Oh, well, yeah, all of this, that's true. Certainly here, I started with 0 ground, and so I'm not unhappy with my ground rod, not at all, but we want to make things better as we can, right? This is Tom's Pro setup, K7BXA. Tom is using the copper strap.
I like that.
To the ground rod. Tom, how long is the ground rod? Do you know?
I think it was an 8-foot ground rod that I pounded as far as I could with a hammer, a big hammer, and then I hit something really solid and it didn't want to go any further, and I decided that this would do. And this was before I heard about Barry's rental gizmo, which probably could have gotten it a bit further into the ground. And I haven't connected this to my AC ground, because the AC ground is about, I don't know, 30, 40 feet away, and it's across, I have to run the wire across a cement slab and a bunch of stuff like that. So I haven't figured out how to connect those two. It would be a lot easier to find another 8-foot rod and beat it in the appropriate distance away and connect those.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
And this box that's I bolted to the side of my house is from that site you just met. What was it? KF7P?
KF7P Metalworks.
Metalworks, yeah. So, not being handy, I decided I would spend money and buy the box, and
it's
and
beautiful.
it has a copper sheet in the back right there, and that's what you hook the copper strap to. So
that is beautiful. And those are the lightning arresters, the devices in between. Yeah.
Yes.
I might suggest that it is important that the power ground and the radio ground are bonded. Otherwise, if you have a lightning strike either on the power or on your antenna, there's going to be a huge potential between the two, and it's going to flow through your equipment, and if you're in the wrong place, through you too.
Okay.
Thanks, Walt. Yeah, that's a common theme that comes up in all their diagrams, but that is a beautiful setup, Tom.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
I've seen it in person and it's outstanding.
It's as good as it as good as it photographs.
But the project's only about half done because I don't have like a copper tube on the inside, everything hooked to yet. It's
for a bus bar,
wire
sure.
Currently. But you know, my original radio setup was so minimal. It was a Samlex power supply and the IC 7100 and a small tuner, and they all hooked together. So there was only one ground wire to come out of all of those things. And so there wasn't a lot of things to hook up.
Yeah.
But that's what
that's how we tackle these things, most of us, bit by bit, as we learn and accumulate the things that we want. I grabbed this sort of changes the direction of the topic a little bit, but this was an intriguing section of the book, and they're talking about creating a protected outlet and then running further outlets off of that. And this protected outlet, they're trying to show here that it's mounted to a chunk of metal. They're calling it the single point ground plane, which itself is grounded to the outside ground system. But I also liked it because it showed, there's the neutral, here's the ground. So the ground from the AC service. And it's implying something interesting here. That ground is also, that our gear is bonded to that ground. So a power supply, anything with a 3-prong AC plug, should follow through naturally. But what about a radio that's just fed by 12-volt DC? Do you try to make that connection there? I don't know, because you're already grounding the actual radio ground terminal to your bus bar here. I don't know. What about the PC? I have to confess, I didn't even think about grounding my PC. There it is, sitting right under the desk. 2 feet from the bus bar. Why not? Why not?
I have a number 12 hooked to my PC also, going to the bus bar.
Why not? I sit here and complain every time we meet about my high noise level around here. And I know it's my neighbor's fault, but in case I'm wrong, I should probably be looking more at my ground setup and such, right?
I resemble that remark, yeah.
I know. There's this guy about 4 doors down. Always talking about sailboats. No, it's noisy. It's just noisy, but it doesn't mean it can't be better. But here's our outside ground again, bonded together, just as Walt pointed out. Our radio ground, our AC panel ground. Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was a pretty good graphic to capture. Okay.
Tom,
go ahead, Greg.
I was going to ask Tom, did you notice quite a decrease in noise level after you did this?
No.
Okay. Okay. Back to you, Ed.
No, I know. Dave pointed
money well spent.
Okay.
Yeah. Dave, Victor, Mike pointed out something early on when we first mentioned doing grounding, that this is probably the most controversial thing in ham radio. This politics, religion, grounding, right? It's just, but for someone like me who's not ever going to be an expert in this, it's nice to have a book that is just something to go by, right? And so that's kind of what this is about. But I really want to hear about everyone's adventure, especially if you do some of these, try to actually build a protected outlet. The book goes as far as to describe creating this using a GFCI, whatever the fancy one is, the ground fault interrupt outlet in a metal box on the metal back plate, and then create outlets off of that, and so that they're off of the protected outlet. It's really interesting, and over my head, but neat stuff.
Yeah, that's actually what I have going on in my place right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. And so do you have a protected outlet on a plane, a metal?
Well, it's just the protective outlets, and then the other outlets are just chained off of that one.
Okay. Yeah, exactly what they're getting at. And there's some other words of wisdom about the less expensive power strips that might have MOV protection and stuff that could actually cause issue for ham radio gear that's going to possibly pull a lot of current in a short period of time, that kind of thing. Let me move on. This is Brian, KG7PD. He's the one that started this whole thing when he mentioned he was working on a ground.
Blame it on me.
I just blamed it on you. Well, it was the inspiration. It's like, hey, we should get pictures and make it a club meeting.
Yeah, so there's kind of the process. It's a 10 by 10 internal box. If I'd been smarter, I would have found an external box, but I did seal the thing up, so hopefully it'll be fine. So, but yeah, I needed to make provisions for up to 7 antennas, and the hole in the bottom there is where I already had a piece of 1 7/8 conduit, external 1 7/8 conduit coming through the wall. So that part of it was done. That probably take as much time as the rest of it. But I got tired of pulling coax through an elbow on the outside of the conduit, and and then through the conduit. So I figured this way I can leave the jumpers connected, and I can just change the antennas on the outside.
Gotcha. No, I love it. Here's hold on, the next.
Yeah, and I did. Yeah, and there's my ground bar, which I've got to connect a couple of more things to. That's actually inside. That's on the underside of a shelf above the radios.
Right. So yeah, right. The bus bar just looks like the same.
And then
concept we're using. Yeah.
And I just put in a terminal strip for the rotor. I know KF7P has there's lightning protected boxes for your rotor controls. I did not put in lightning arresters at this point. After reading the book saying that we have an average of 5 days of lightning here on our stretch of the coast a year, I figured, well, I'll wing it for now. But then the number 6 strand, it comes, one piece goes in the house, and then it's crimped there, and then the other side goes straight down outside into the ground rods.
Is your ground rod that's right outside the box here? I couldn't quite.
There's one. Yeah, there's one over to the left.
Okay.
And then over to the right, there's another one I put in, which was the one I was originally connected to, just a single ground rod.
Okay.
So now that big wire on the right of the box, that's the wire that goes to the ground wire that the electrician added to the service panel, which is probably about 20 or 25 feet to the right of where that picture is.
Okay.
So we've partially created our perimeter.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
So we are connected to the electrical, the green wire, as it were, in the service panel.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing this, Brian.
Yeah, it's been a fun little project. And actually I looked at KF7Ps and I said, okay, what's my budget going to be for this?
Yeah.
Yeah, because his stuff, it's not inexpensive, but he does a really nice job judging from what we've seen.
Yeah, look at Tom's. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. So actually those barrel connectors, those bulkhead connectors, they're like about $7 a piece. So it's not real expensive.
No, I like the concept too. You can do some, if your antenna situation changes, it won't be that hard to rearrange, right?
Right.
Add more cables or move that one over there or something like that.
Yeah, and the KF7P is it's got a box. It's got a nice weatherproof swinging door on a hinge, which I don't have. I just have a plate. The plate drops over the screws and you just tighten them down. I may add a little bit of weather stripping there in the future, but haven't got that far yet.
Gotcha. Thanks. Excellent. Yeah. Thanks you guys for sharing the photos, Tom and Chuck and Brian. This is a lot of fun. I've got one last thing here. This is a bit of a puzzle. Chuck already offered a solution, so Chuck, you're not allowed to answer. But so here's the scenario. This is my take it on the road radio, my expedition radio. It's the Kenwood radio, the amplifier, a tuner. There's some other bits in here, a USB hub, some other stuff. Everything's mounted and very well bonded to this aluminum frame that's made out of T-slot. And here it is sitting on the bed of the tailgate of the pickup truck. Generator power, antenna out in the field, no ground rod. There's no even pretend wire stuck in the dirt, right? There's no ground. And so we're out. This is literally last September. This is where the photo is from even. And getting a little noise from the generator in the lower bands and going, too bad I don't have a ground. So just for fun, I took the ground strap that's sort of permanently mounted to this, attached it to a bare metal spot on the truck right here, and the noise dropped in half.
Wow.
But the truck's not grounded, right? It's on 4 tires. There's truly no there's no ground. How can that be? How could I have is it the extra metal hanging off of that? Or anyone have any theories? I don't actually have the answer. I just have what Chuck's answer was actually pretty good. It's kind of like walking around with the clipboard saying I'm estimating a wire run. It's going to be my second answer. I was trying to draw the ground with this red thing that came out more like a Halloween pitchfork or something. But
So how is the negative, are the chassis the negative of the power supply in any way connected? You're connected to the truck electrical system?
No, not at all. It's a generator.
Oh, okay. So it's completely separate power supply.
Generator, extension cord to power supply battery setup that's on a plastic box sitting behind this that you can't see. But
yeah,
truly no connection to the truck until I connected it. And the noise went.
I'm guessing that your truck is acting like a ground plane for your antenna, which the coax of your antenna is grounded to your radio.
Right.
And that's bonded to that frame. And then maybe that's it. That's a wild guess.
No, I was thinking along those lines too, and I thought maybe I don't know what I thought.
Ed, I missed the point. Did you say the noise went up or down?
No, it went down. It went down
when you connected the grounds together.
Yeah, and it was when I say noise, it was definitely from the generator, but it was a staticky, constant kind of noise. It's not a Honda generator, by the way. We can do another one on generator sometime, but anyway, I got one more picture. Here was Chuck suggested that the truck capacitively coupled to the ground, so that there was no physical connection, but perhaps being that it was an AC noise, that it was still coupling to the ground enough to be noticeable.
Borrowing from the principle of shunt feeding your tower.
Shunt feeding the truck to Eastern Washington scrubland. So I like that. So that's my two favorite things. I can't wait to pull out at work. One is estimating the wire run, and somehow I'll just randomly throw out, I think that's capacitively coupling to the ground there. And that's why your Netflix is choppy this evening. Data center issue. But
I would be concerned about two things. One, under certain circumstances, the wind will generate a static charge in a metal like an antenna. And since what you described there's no DC connection to the ground, it might build up a static charge and bite you. The other is if there's a light anywhere near, you don't want to be anywhere near that, because there's going to be a huge voltage impulse between the truck and the frame of the radio and ground. And I don't want you to be the grounding conductor.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Let me fill in more of the story. This was in Eastern Washington, Lincoln County. There were no trees within maybe 40, 50 miles. There were no trees was the point. Big flat open. It was windy. It was so windy. Oh my gosh. The antenna was a end fed half wavelength wire cut for 160 meters, right? So it was 500 and some ridiculous amount of feet of wire, which worked amazing. Inverted V, the center was held up with Chuck's army pole, extending army pole, and that could have very well been wind generated static. Thankfully I didn't get shocked or anything, but
I might suggest one thing you might try again next time you go out, Ed. Take a heavy gator clip, and maybe about 25 or 30 feet of wire, and just lay it on the ground, circulating around the truck, and just get a little more capacity through the wire to ground, and see if it actually brings it down any further.
Oh, no, I love that idea. It would actually be, so actually connect that to the frame of the radio frame,
your truck frame.
Oh, the truck frame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because right now we're just guessing, well, okay, the body of the truck is actually capacitively coupled, and that's so much area. Well, you can add to that ground coupling area by just stringing some wire around
on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did that to a capacity coupled, well, you might say a mag mount with an HF antenna, and notice that I got an improvement by just alligator clipping a wire to the base, laying it on the ground and kind of running around the wheels, the front and the other side of the truck. And that actually helped a lot. So it might work. You might just try it to see if there's any difference.
I will definitely do that. If nothing else, just for the fun of experimenting, and see if my noise goes up, it goes down, if there was any noise to begin with. Yeah, thanks guys. Fantastic.
Also, as an alternative or in addition to it, you might just take about a 2-foot ground rod and wherever you park and everything else, drive that sucker in the mud someplace. Yeah.
And throw a bucket of water on it.
A bucket of water. Yep. I love all these ideas. We started out the meeting talking about my weekend adventure at the pay for campground with the luxury shore power. And so what I did there was use my jumper cables and clamped onto the grounded AC service, and we grounded our whole station and everything else with that. But I don't know if it.
Hey, another idea, and this is better yet. It really saves a lot on setup time. Put your ground rod in a bucket of dirt and just carry the bucket of dirt with you.
Can use some nice damp conductive dirt. Save a lot of trouble.
Would that be a plastic bucket or a steel bucket?
Oh, plastic bucket. Just keep it in the truck. That's ground.
Yeah. Well, I do carry a bucket, but we don't want to get into that.
Keep it wet too.
Keep it wet. Do carry a lot of water. All kidding aside, these are great suggestions. I appreciate all of them as we tackle the noise and safety and effectiveness of the radio too. It's
So I had a question there.
Yeah,
Chuck, when you're talking about the wire going out and around the truck, would that be an insulated wire or a bare wire?
An insulated wire, we're just looking at the capacitance.
Oh, okay.
Adding to the capacitance, if that theory holds true,
yes,
adding a little more area to that capacitance to ground might reduce it a little further.
No, it makes
ground
sense.
rod will be always better, I'm sure.
Well, but it'd be fun to try, and would reduce the dielectric spacing, right? If I'm laying this wire on the ground, as opposed to, I would think, being foot and a half off the ground or whatever. Yeah. Anyhow,
I have another fork I'd like to go on for just a minute, if I could. I don't know if anybody else but me is in an apartment. I'm in a condo. I'm fortunate to be able to be on the ground floor and kind of behind the trash compactor where I'm not too visible. And I have a stealth wire antenna up, but I don't really have much. I don't have a lot of radio equipment. I do have a couple of computers in here, but I'm kind of in a position where I can't really do too much with the building's grounding system or put ground rods out myself even. There are some pipes going into the ground, a couple of different things outside my window that I might be able to attach to. Robert was talking about that when he came over last weekend. But I'm wondering if anybody knows how to test those things that are already in the ground to see whether they're doing any, whether they would work or not. I could clamp something to it.
Megger?
Yeah, there's I've actually seen this done, but it was a long time ago. I knew people in the military that tested ground rod, and they're testing the conductivity to the earth, and there's some special equipment. You're measuring things in micro Siemens or something, and it was I imagine that's quite an instrument to try to get hold of, but there's definitely a way to measure that. Or
I suppose I could clamp something to it and see if it makes any difference in my noise level.
That's the head method. Yeah. It's
yeah, so I don't really have any way other than the building ground to do much with. I could bond the equipment together, but like somebody mentioned, my HF rig is connected to a tuner and to a power supply. They're all grounded together, and I should probably bond my 2-meter rig to that. Well, it's also connected to that power supply as well, so I don't know if it makes that much difference. But
so Rich, what's your floor, and could you like drill a little hole just enough to pound a ground rod in the corner of the room? Would that go with the dirt? Or
actually
that's where the dirt bucket is.
yeah. Oh yeah, can I get one of those dirt buckets from you, Barry? I put it in the corner where my wife can't see it. And no, my floor is concrete, so that's not a option.
Concrete is drillable.
I can just sense Susan like squinting, shaking her head, and starting to backpedal away from this crazy group.
I'm looking up a different group I can join right now.
That's right. That's Mike and Key Club looks really good about now, don't they?
Make sure that they're well grounded.
Oh, that's bad and good at the same time.
Well, I'm on the second floor, so I have an even worse problem. I'm in a condo, and I can't ground anything here.
No. Well, all I know for sure is MFJ has a solution for anything. And I think in there they have that little, it looks like an antenna tuner, a little one.
The artificial ground.
Artificial ground. Yeah.
I saw that thing.
Is that anything? I don't know.
I don't want to run RF into my green wire ground in the building, that's for sure.
Yeah. There's a whole, I say a whole thing, there's some paragraphs, but it's a whole subject discussed again in the same grounding book about the length of ground wires in relation to the wavelength of the frequency that you're operating on. So we're around 80 meters and we have 12 feet of ground wire out to our ground rod. It's relatively short, but if we're on 70 centimeters, it's quite long, and things become antennas or parts of your antenna system. And it's more than I understand, that is for sure.
The question that ARRL book on grounding and bonding, I know they have just come out with a second edition on that, and I wonder if anybody has seen that. Wonder what the differences are.
Good.
I have the first edition. It's news to me.
I don't know what edition I have. I have the Kindle edition.
Yeah, I just got the second edition.
Ah,
Yeah, I'm not sure what the difference are because I've never seen the first edition.
Maybe it's got a whole section on grounding for condos.
No, I didn't see that. Oh, where we are. Yeah.
Yeah, that green book we've got, I've got it's 2017, 2008, that one.
Yeah, there.
This one here. Oh,
Yeah.
That's right. I've got the background blurred.
2017. Let's see. Does it say an edition? First edition. That's what I have. Right there.
Okay.
If you get the Kindle one and then you get the Kindle reader on your PC, you can just do this. And I actually like holding the book in my hand, but this has worked out pretty well for things like meetings and stuff. Anyway, that was my last slide, everyone. And we're past 8 o'clock, so we can hang out if you like. But that's formally anyway. That's the end of what I have.
Oh, thanks, Ed.
I'm very
Great,
happy to.
Ed.
Yeah. Well,
thank you very much.
it's great. It's just great hanging out with all of you.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the day when we'll actually see people again.
Ed, there's a lot of interesting YouTube videos about why are they neutral and ground bonded in the house, floating neutrals on generators and that kind of thing. Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It is really interesting.
Well, I'm kind of lucky. I don't have a grounding system per se. You know, my ham shack and everything else. I mean, you know, there's the AC power panel, and it's like what 8 feet away, and there's the corner of the house, and the antenna and the tower will be right over there. And so I am probably a shorter distance just by the fact that the ground wires going, you know, from the power that everything is connected to, you know, right over to it. And so if I added any additional you know, grounding wires and everything else, they would be longer than what's here. I don't know what good it would do.
Well, how about that tower though?
Well, the tower, yeah, the tower will be grounded as a grounding rod, and you know, of course, that will be 3 foot out this window, and it will be also bonded to another ground rod that they put in, 2 of them. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and then when they install the shop over there, they put in 2 other ground rods. So I've got probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ground rods plus the one I'll add for the tower within 12 feet of one another anyway.
That's pretty short, but yeah, you need something. You do need a ground by the tower itself. So any static
definitely.
built up and
Straight down into the ground, yeah.
keep it outside and not let it get inside.
Yes.
Good deal, Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be very happy to help pound those in when the day comes.
Well, I'm gonna borrow that thing that Barry's got that goes, you know, because that's what the electrician came over. It's a ton. It's a big, you know, hammer kind of a thing. Got up on the thing and took about probably 3 minutes to drive this 8-foot ground rod in all the way in.
Wow.
And he put like 1, 2, 3 of them, 4 of them in.
I'd be embarrassed to tell you how long I pounded on mine. And I still,
yeah, been there, done that.
5 feet at the most. At the most, it's in there. It just isn't going any further. Not under my power anyway. Here we go.
You know, in the antenna, the grounding book, they also mentioned if you have an impact hammer, there's a tool you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot anyway, and attaches to your impact hammer. And they say that'll make short work of most grounds. Well, believe it when you see it, but that's another idea.